Welcome to this week's episode of Marijuana Mind with yours truly, Dr. Justin Davis, and my forever fearless co-host, Cynthia Brewer.
That is true. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll allow that one. I was waiting for your word of the day calendar to hit me upside the head.
Second, that was like, it came to me. And so it wasn't my best, but it wasn't my worst. And we also have another Cynthia with us today as a guest.
Two Cynthias. Yes, this is the best day ever. I'm stoked.
Yes. Along with her business partner, Maur.
And husband.
I don't know. And husband. Okay. Business husband, business partner. And you're representing primarily green-lit beverage. Is that what I would say? Green-lit.
It's Shakti green-lit. So they are I will take it from here. You just sit on that boat and everyone who's watching from YouTube is going to be able to enjoy the surroundings of Dr. Davis as he works hard at helping the patients of Florida get access and all that stuff with his family on a boat and a dog.
To my defense, I was doing a very Floridian thing today, which is primarily viewing manatees.
Or trading crack cocaine for a turtle.
We did get a turtle. There's actually, believe it or not, there's a bald eagle right above me right now, sitting on a tree. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a bald eagle.
I see it, but like I don't want to see this shit. Come on. Like I'm in my home office and you're on the water. And the wonderful guests that we have today are, yes, of course, Cynthia, Mompoint, and Maur Stringer. They are the founders and co-CEOs, co-founders of Shakti Green Lit, which actually launched an amazing product, which is a THC infused energy shot that seemed to be incredibly well received when you guys launched. Is that not correct?
Yes, and it's still picking up steam. We just opened up a contract with Netta not too long ago. We just we're actually going to be in their Brookline store tomorrow.
My family's from Brookline.
Yeah, they should stop by. What time will be there? From 1 to 4, right?
They're all dead. So yeah, but I'm saying at one time they lived in Brookline. So I'm going to call everyone else I know and push it. So from everything I read, people are loving it. People are really this is not like one of those fad products where they're like, oh, we'll try it. And they're like, want, disappointment. They're actually really into this.
Yeah.
I want to hear the conceptualization starting with the name. I mean, green lit. I like that. And then Shakti. Where did the Shakti come in?
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, definitely. That's my path through Buddhism and Hinduism. The feminine energy. I was real masculine, into a lot of masculine things, just the violence and these things, the war on drugs. So for me, I had to come home from that war to be civilized. And meditation, yoga, getting with the feminine energy through Hinduism was part of my path about 15 plus years ago. So like I meditate for hours every day. I do yoga every day, so that's just a part of my staying mentally healthy. So Shakti.
I love that. Cynthia, how do you feel about your partner in business and life going from like a masculine energy to recognizing the feminine side, which is something that obviously most women can attest that doesn't normally happen? What's it like having someone that's so in touch with that side of them and then also reflecting a yoga kind of meditative personality?
Well, Maur is just amazing overall. Just the journey has been great. It's something that, he talks about it from his experience, but likewise, I've learned a lot. We've gone through this together, and I was already in touch with my feminine energy, but I think I tapped in even deeper and just getting that
Makes
balance,
sense.
right? And but to see the growth and the transformation has been amazing. We have been together since we were young adults. So, just growing and going through life together. It really does capture. Cannabis has been something very instrumental in our lives, in our relationship, particularly in Maur's life. And I think just to be where we are today in this space is amazing. And Shakti, the brand, Shakti Greenlit, the brand, and the energy product is, I think it's a reflection of that and a hint of what's more to come.
I love that story. You guys are such a great couple. I love the energy between you. And you can tell that you're in it for the long haul, good, bad, or ugly. It's a ride or die relationship, which is something that I've always been a huge champion for. Like, have my back. Doesn't matter if I say the sky is orange. Just, just support me. Have my back. If I pick a fight with a lady at an Aldi, like don't call the cops, but just shuffle me out appropriately. So I want to talk a little bit more about Maur, and your past. When you say what I've read and then what you just touched on was, surviving and being almost not a casualty, but kind of a victim of the war on drugs. This goes back to you when you were 14 years old, if I'm correct, and you were tried and convicted as an adult at 14 for selling cannabis to another 14-year-old or someone along that same age group?
I believe he was 13 years old. And as this comes out, hopefully we can find him again. But I was charged with 2 charges. It was sale to a minor and attempted robbery. So I got the conviction for the attempted robbery. In exchange, they threw out the sale to a minor. But it was just insane to me that, these adult men would charge a child for something they probably did themselves,
You were 14.
Yeah.
You were a child.
Yeah.
You couldn't, I mean,
how could you justify try and use an adult for a non-violent crime as a 13-year-old?
This is the war on drugs.
Yeah. And then so the other thing I took, which was so what happened was this little young kid came over messing with us, asking for weed. We were like, man, get out of here, get out of here, So I didn't sell him any weed. What I did was I gave him Dutch guts, the inside of the cigar. And he gave me $20, and I was like, all right, cool. So he came back and he was like, man, this is not weed. Give me my money back. And I was like, man, get out of here.
No refunds.
Hindsight, I should have gave his money back and like, get the hell out of here. But so he went up there to call the police, and this was right by there's a famous the Joey Buttafuoco incident with a girl shot the other girl in the face. The mobster's little mechanic shop was right there. So one of the white guys came down and was like, hey, that guy up there is calling this little kid over there is calling the cops on me, saying you guys robbed him. So I was like, yeah, right, whatever. He can't call the cops. He's trying to buy weed from me, right? He's not calling the cops. So he ended up calling the cops and ended up getting arrested.
Okay, let's just touch on the fact that there's a 13-year-old who got mad when he tried to buy weed. So he called the law to complain about the poor transaction with the alleged weed dealer. You see the innocence of the story where it's like, you took advantage of me. I got to tell an adult. I need to tell someone in an authority place. So I'm that immature in life. I'm that adolescent person that needs to reach out for help because I feel wronged. So I call the cops, regardless of the sale of the purchase or the attempted purchase of cannabis. He called the law on you for not selling him weed.
Yeah. So
let's find this kid. He needs to be euthanized because if that keeps reproducing, we're in for a really rough couple of decades. If that is what we're looking at. Justin, what are your thoughts?
What was the other kid white, out of curiosity?
Yeah, what did the other kid? Did he get something?
Yeah. And do you think that played a role, the fact that this white kid called on you, obviously African American?
Did he not get charged?
So I don't know what he got charged with. I don't know if he got charged with filing a false report. I don't know what happened to him. Like he went to juvenile. They took him to a juvenile place, and they took me to an adult place.
Oh my gosh! At 14 years old, you enter adult grown man prison.
Yeah. So 72 hours I was in there in 3 days, and then you get to see the judge.
Oh my gosh, what was that like?
I mean, I ended up getting used to it. I got arrested a lot growing up. So I have been arrested, I had 8 open cases at one time, in my teenage years. So
that is unfortunately like a very common story that we see, not just in cannabis, in all aspects of life. And it's really unfortunate because the history of social disenfranchising and kind of like career punishment. It's like people are continuously going to punish you for one mistake, 2 mistakes, and it's like you are branded. You are then all of a sudden wearing like that scarlet letter of like, you are a bad person. We got to keep an extra eye on you, and every time you do anything wrong, we're going to punish you even more. And you could have succumbed to that type of behavior and that type of treatment, and you didn't.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. A lot of my friends and family members, loved ones, they weren't as fortunate, and I don't know why. I just had the heart to leave, but I don't know why. Like, I had some serious charges in 2015. I had to sell to an undercover cop in Boston, and then I had $60,000 worth of concentrates coming through Ohio. I never had to do any time for those charges. They were thrown out on technicalities most of the time. Just doing my own work and learning how to do my own lawyer work. So just because I've just been a part of it.
Do you feel like some people kind of get caught up in the system because they don't know that they can actually fight it, and they kind of just accept whatever punishment's coming or whatever status quo, whatever? I mean, I think I've heard from multiple cops and attorneys that the police always think that their case is rock solid and perfect, when actually it's not in the slightest, but nobody challenges authority as much. Do you think that because you decided to invest in yourself and your freedom and your rights, that you had kind of this upper hand where other people don't seem to fight as often?
Well, absolutely. I believe, just like you said, they always break the law to enforce the law, and that's just part of what they call in law. That's the forbidden fruit, or that's from the tree of the forbidden fruit. Once you cross down that path, like most district attorneys and judges are not going to allow that type of activity. So yeah, you have to break the law to enforce it.
And my comment to that would be, a lot of folks fight, but perhaps they're not fighting the right way, and not equipped with the know-how in terms of on what rights do they have to stand on, and where should they really be focusing their energy to defend themselves. And our experience has, and I say our because at times
it's been a long time.
Yeah, well, and it's going through, as he described Ohio and Boston, we had to put the defense together. We did that despite hiring an attorney, despite having an attorney, really showing them where the law was violated before any other infraction on his part may have taken place. So to that point, sometimes folks don't know how to fight, and that in and of itself, systemically, you see a class of people, particularly Black and Brown people, particularly people who do not have the resources, whether it's financial or network, and sometimes financial isn't enough either. To go against the system. And then also, I just want to chime in that the school to prison pipeline is a real system. In my past life, many moons ago, I was a classroom educator, and one of the things I taught third grade. And they look at the third grade reading data to determine how many prison beds they're going to have prepared, because they have done the research, and it shows if a child is not reading by third grade, that child is very likely to end up in the prison system.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't have kids. You guys share 4 children?
Yes.
4 wonderful children. I know Justin has like a small baseball team of kids somewhere. Justin, with that, her saying that, how does that make you feel, like as a parent, that based off of your children's reading level and their fellow students, that they could judge them based off of that and adjust beds in prisons?
Yeah, it just seems like if you already are equipped with that kind of knowledge, that kind of data,
fix it.
Instead of deciding how many prison beds you should have, shouldn't you then be really focusing on making sure that everyone can read by third grade, and rather than
invest in that, take those numbers and do something about it.
What could be more valuable to invest in children, but for the greater society as well? It's not like you're just giving something to families with children that can't read. It has a greater good for everybody. It helps the entire society.
But you think about the
Absolutely.
school system as a whole, and you think about some of the schools that are in neighborhoods that are wealthy neighborhoods, all of that. I think we've talked about on the show before how, I remember going to school in Atlanta, and there were a lot of coaches that would go and try and find talent. Some of that talent was not in that school system, so they would just make arrangements for that kid
Yeah.
to be in the school. And I'm like, okay, so he could be the best wide receiver and you could be responsible for coaching him in high school, but you're not going to go and help anybody else that's not going to help your booster club, and like help you win games. And that's really unfortunate. And I feel horrible. I've never heard that detail before, Cynthia, and that's actually really upsetting. But I know for a fact that you guys did not sit and think about all the times that you were wronged. You went and you decided to go and do something about it, to go and help those who might be suffering like you were in the same situations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book called Who Moved My Cheese?
I love that book.
Yeah, I live it. That's my philosophy in terms of me being brave enough to make a way, to go out, find a way, and not just sit around where things are. We are very solutions oriented. So yeah, that's why I wrote the books about me being arrested, and wrote the books and writing books about, how to get in the industry and equity and stuff. Yeah. Who Moved My Cheese? That's the reason why anybody who does anything should write a book. Anybody who does anything should write a book on how they got there. You owe it to society, mankind, to show how you got there,
Because someone's going to be looking on that wall and reading.
Yeah.
And it's gonna help.
You're going to be long gone, and your words are going to outlast your breath, man. Like on the wall.
Justin's book would be more pictures, and like you flip it and it does like a thing and the kid's walking. Right, Justin?
That'll help those who aren't able to read. So, there's an audience for everyone.
Full circle. Go on, Justin.
I'm curious though. You were talking about, sort of your experience and helping you get there. So what is it in your experience that led you to your current path? Shakti green lit. Got it that time. Nailed it.
Finally.
Man, so once I was with the Buddhism, the spiritualism, the meditation, you're shutting down your mind and you're becoming more in control of your experience. But it was such a traumatic thing for me to read about it, because when I graduated high school, I was still sounding out words in books. So I was like a functional a reader at best, so who they were targeting was me. Had been arrested several times, and that was going on. So yeah, part of my getting out of that cycle was one, talking to somebody, because I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a victimizer. I felt like somebody, like I was out there to, terrorize the world, and not realizing I was doing that from a really hurt place, from a foundation of being terrorized myself. I was created into this child soldier,
Mm-hmm.
and so that was part of coming out of that, the meditation, the yoga, reading, coming home, so that's my whole process. Like I do that every morning, and I'm going to start doing some lives. I've done lives, a lot of lives, videos where I go through the process, and part of my process is meditation, do some movement, however you want to move, whatever you want to do in terms of movement, and then you sit down and you do your yoga, or you go through your stretches, and you can do it reverse. You can go through your movement, and then you go through your yoga, and then you do your meditation at the end. But that's kind of like my cycle, kind of set your day off right, and to keep your mind and your body and your energy at ease. And I think it's paramount for people living that lifestyle, getting arrested all the time. You need to learn how to meditate. If you're in jail, what are you doing? So that was one of my biggest things of getting out. That's my, that's what I would share.
Do you feel like some people that have been repeatedly and incessantly treated the way that you were enjoy routine like that, having a daily routine where they're doing certain amount of tasks, activities that kind of center themselves, that maybe that, kind of grounds them a little bit, even though prison is a routine as well?
Yeah. I think it's difficult for all of us, I think it's difficult for all of us to develop routines, but one of the things is, like, the more you can control yourself, the more you can control your environment around you. And a lot of times, with that type of terroristic attitude, anything outside triggers can trigger you,
Mm-hmm.
and the violence, and then so you have to learn how to control yourself. And that's one of the biggest things, I think, for a lot of us, though, too, because a lot of successful people talk about meditation as a means.
They do. And a lot of people, so I've had family members that have been in and out of, correctional facilities for a variety of different things, and some of them warranted, some of them not so much. And there's stories that like will never compare, but there tends to be a lot of leftover residual anger, at like, not so much themselves, but at the system. You don't seem to carry anger to me. You don't seem like you're angry at someone for everything that you've had to go through. And I do understand and respect people that do get angry, because sometimes it's an unfair shake, but like, you seem very at peace with the way that your life has ended up and how you got to this point, and that you're using that for positive. I don't see that often.
Well, I mean, I'm just regular like everybody else, but I have a place where I get really crazy in the morning with my workout. I do martial arts, taekwondo.
She's nodding. She's like, yeah.
I'm screaming, yelling, fuck, what? Just going crazy. And I think you need that release. And I think violence has a place in sports, in a match or some place like that where it's in a controlled environment. So that's what I do. I get violent with myself. I run. I do a lot of cardio. I just beat my body up every day. And then I really, after just moving around, I make myself sit down with the yoga,
Yeah.
And one thing also, with white children, I used to go to the jails a lot, and it's so full of white children, with 34 and 40 something years, children of all types of colors. And you wouldn't know, but America just has an issue with locking a lot of people up. And one of the biggest thing that was just blew my mind when I would go to the jails, that was part of, my giving back, was going to the jails, talking to the children. There was a lot of white children in there, and they have crazy numbers like 44 years or 20 something years, crazy numbers. And they're starting off as a child, and then they're going to move from juvenile jail to real jail, to prison. So it's
stuck
an
in the
epidemic.
system.
It's an epidemic. There's over 1 million laws on the book. So, I do know. And when I was in Ohio, I was in jail with nothing but white people.
Wow. I mean, that's different.
Cynthia.
Yes. Me or her?
No, the other two.
Ooh, first two Cynthia's. A little
I was ready
faux
for
pas
the
there.
question.
My bad.
So I'm assuming you sort of were there through the transformation of Maur from angry child soldier to self-aware Buddhist entrepreneur. Were you part of that transformation? And then also, what was it like to I guess, be part of that?
So interestingly, when I wasn't there for the childhood.
I was going to see if she was going to say that. She met me when I was peaceful. I was already I was a Christian. I was a Christian minister. But go ahead, you tell it.
Well, and let's make sure the listeners and the watchers, viewers know that, like, this is not just a Maur story. This is a Maur and Cynthia story independently, how their stories merged together to form the Shakti Greenlit brand. But Cynthia, you're actually the CEO of is it Damballa?
Zambala Group, yes.
Okay.
So,
I love this. I love the quotes about, let me just say that one of your latest contributions being the investigative examination of structural, cultural, conscious, and subconscious bias as it relates to the mass CCC. I love that. I love whoever wrote that. If you wrote it, I love wordsmithing like that. And I also actually understand what this means, because I deal with the CCC on a regular basis.
Oh, wow.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah,
with Maur first.
I met him like exactly how he described, very peaceful. And I think one of the things I will say, just in terms of as he makes the statements about, he's human, yeah. And over the years and through the different phases of our journey in growth, there have been things that triggered And that's how I came to learn and understand really what the trauma was that pretty much established a foundation and he had done a pretty good job, you know, covering it up, but then things would happen and it would trigger. And I didn't understand it. I didn't. And I didn't understand it. One, I'm not a man. Two, I'm not a Black man, you know, and um, three, I've never been arrested, nor was I ever arrested but as a child, you know. I think my closest interaction with police was when they came to tell us about DARE and like, hey, say no to drugs. So
Right.
to hear his experience, it's, you know, it's painful because there wasn't much I can do but listen. And then to see the transformation, I'm extremely proud. I'm extremely amazed and awed because, you know, he's saying violence like, hey, this is cool, you know, but it really is, you know, if anyone ever sees him, he goes to the beach in the middle of winter. We live in Massachusetts. You know, he's at the beach on Sunday morning, dipping in the water after he's just ran like 3 to 6 miles or what have you, dipping in the water. And it's, you know, constantly disciplining and disciplining the body, because if you're able to do that, there's a level of control that demonstrates, and it provides an outlet for any time the triggers that may arise, because there are things that happen, whether it's conversations. The rollout of the legalization industry is a slap in the face to mass incarceration.
Huge.
It really is.
Huge.
People, you know, who went through it directly have their family go through it and are still dealing with those consequences. We still have people locked up because of marijuana, because of weed.
Yeah. And
then
this is a systemic issue of not being able to, one, hire people that have been incarcerated for cannabis, non-violent cannabis crimes, because we have not expunged or their records, you know, and as a, you know, business owner, and, you know, we're vetting employees and stuff, and I can't hire someone that was actually put away for cannabis, even if they're the best candidate. And a grower of mine couldn't hire them, even if they're the best at growing weed, because they just still don't want to cross over those lines of legitimate cannabis company and incarcerated you know, cannabis criminal, whatever that means. They don't want to like unblur those lines. They won't let us merge that back and right those wrongs. How does that make you feel, even though you did find a way to overcome that and create your own company? How does it make you feel for some of the other people that haven't been able to participate?
Oh, I mean, it's something that I'm planning on changing, and being a part of that change. You know, it's devastating. There needs to be immense forgiveness in this space for that, and we're not seeing it at all. You know, but they're using our stories to open up these markets.
Justin,
Yeah, we've talked about, you know, this several times on the show and had guests as well, and it's very frustrating where you have people that are becoming, you know, quite wealthy and openly in these, you know, CEOs of popular companies investing hundreds of millions into cannabis all of a sudden. Then that's fine, but a few years ago, you know, people were being incarcerated like crazy, and there's still people that are incarcerated, and other people
there's such a big difference between decriminalization and then, you know, like just making things right. So unfortunately, we are in the state of Florida, and I say that because our program here from the beginning, from the inception, has created these giant barriers to entry, mostly, you know, created by rich people wanting to prevent, you know, other rich people from getting involved, or prevent a whole group of people from getting involved. And then we just now awarded the Black Farmers License, which is a fantastic name for it, because I think we should definitely title it the Black Farmers License, to a Pigford Glickman litigant that's just a portion owner in a company that's owned by a bunch of, you know, very wealthy white men. We forgot as a group of industry professionals to put language that makes them majority owners, or makes them Pigford litigants from the state of Florida, perhaps, or protects them from being exploited. And that is the nightmare that is Florida. But I do know that with you saying that the investigate, and I'm talking Cynthia, with the investigative examination of the Mass CC, I want you to speak a little bit about that. What do you think is happening with and for everyone who's listening, the Mass CC is the regulatory body that is in Massachusetts that regulates both my lab. I have a lab in Natick, and yes, and we operate in that market. So I've dealt with the CCC, but there's a lot of, cultivators and companies like yourself. Talk to us a little bit about what that statement means to you.
Sure, absolutely. So the Cannabis Control Commission it's a young agency, and prior to our work in cannabis, I actually did policy work for the state of Massachusetts in the Department of Education, and so I'm familiar with agency operation. And Massachusetts legislation, unlike Florida, actually laid the framework and the groundwork to have equitable participation in the state, meaning participation from Black and Brown communities, from those who have been harmed the most by the war on drugs, to have an opportunity to enter into this industry. They put some things in place for that to happen. And it's the commission, it is the commission's responsibility to determine the policy and to implement this policy to ensure that that happens. And so what we found going back, so Massachusetts opened up, we legalized in 2016, issued the first license in 2018. And that statement comes, I think it was in 2020 that I made that statement, and I still stand by it. And what happened, what we saw was the industry was opening up. We were at the point of having over almost 300 licenses issued, and I think one had gone to an economic empowerment certificate holder, meaning an equity participant, only one. And there were 123 economic empowerment certificate holders here in Massachusetts. And Massachusetts had also opened up another program. But what we found, we were like, wait, why is this happening? Why is it that we have legislative language that says that the state needs to prioritize the equity businesses, and we're not seeing equity businesses opening up? And so what we saw happened were key decisions that were made by the regulators. They literally created a priority period, what we would consider a priority period for medical operators or capitalized operators to enter into Massachusetts market, pay to play. And they did not create a pathway for Massachusetts' own residents, their own citizens to and the equity participants to enter into the industry. That was one of the biggest flags. And so as we started to look deeper into the connections between certain individuals and the businesses who were dominating in the space.
Oh yeah.
And what we ended up, it's a white paper that I put together, the Massachusetts Marijuana Social Equity Report. In that, we basically made 10 observations of what was happening in Massachusetts. And I guess it's a PC way of saying, hey, look, you guys are dropping the ball in these key areas. And we gave recommendations. I highlighted 10 things that they can do, and then provided commentary and evidence to support why these were the observations that we were making. Specifically, the one that I highlight about they're giving a priority period to well-capitalized operators, and it's going to be business as usual when the legislation says, no, we want equitable participation.
Equity first, like they said. Yeah.
They said, yeah, equity first, and that didn't happen. And then I went on to say, you know what, hey, here's a solution. So I actually did put together a program that the state could adopt. And even instead of that despite it being recommended to the commission by their own advisory board, I was actually attacked for it.
Yeah, we
were attacked. I mean, but when you start digging and you investigate actions, especially actions at this level where we're talking about big players, and then the small players wanting to come in and say, hey, why aren't the small players able to participate? And that's what happens when you start to investigate.
You're poking the bear, and everything looks great on paper, right? Like legislative session happens after you pass, legalization or medical use, and everyone's all like charged, and they're like, yay, cannabis. And then you come up with this language, it's not perfect, but the fact that your legislators decided to put language in there about social equity, says a lot, Now,
you don't see it everywhere. You don't see
no,
that everywhere. So that's something that was very unique. And Massachusetts still has an opportunity to correct course and really deliver on the charge that the
Yeah.
legislators put down.
this is not an
Um,
option. This is
No.
this is the law. The legislators tell you what to do, and then you guys do the stuff. And we see how, like New York, for instance, they're having issues with their program too. The social equity program up there is a nightmare. And there's a lot of residency requirement nightmare stuff going on too, with some of the pace in which they're going to award these wonderful licenses to print money. But in Massachusetts, like, yeah, everything looks so good on paper. And then it gets time to implement, and it looks like the regulators, and we've seen that in Florida, will cherry pick. We're going to go ahead and do this section. We'll do that section. And social equity just kind of falls by the wayside. But if you bring it up, you're the bad guy. And they're going to go after you. That's got to be scary. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, I was saying you have legislators and they have good intentions, probably, at least some of them, but then the money and economics, get in the way when people actually start doing it. And there's the greed factor, or who's paying whom for licenses.
But they have to do it if it's in the language that the state legislators assigned for this program, then the CCC has to do it. It's just, unless they put a timeline, they don't really have to do it in a specific order, right?
So there, it's interesting. So there were some key decisions that were made. For example, the decision on what priority meant. What did that actually translate to? That played a significant factor into why we see the numbers where they are. The reason why they talk about having equity programs and wanting to make sure that those who have been harmed the most by the war on drugs are able to participate in this industry across all levels, is because when we look at who were, even in the medical space, it was dominated by wealthy white business owners. And so they say they want to do something different. However, and so we have equity. They've identified the economic empowerment certificate holders. Of the 123 original certificate holders, about 85% of them were Black owned certificate holders. So if the state had poised the economic empowerment, we call them EE for short, the EEs, to enter into this industry early on, the percentage would have changed when we talk about ownership. And then you look at the rollout of that, fast forward, we're still dealing with the industry where 80% plus are reporting ownership of white male owners, 80% plus here in Massachusetts. And it says something when we had that opportunity to define priority, and the policy regulators decided, no, we're not going to prioritize in a way that says, until we have a qualified equity applicant to move forward, we're not going to approve any other licenses. They'll say, well, we'll just keep approving them. And when someone comes along, despite knowing the barriers that everyone across the country has recognized into entering into this industry and not providing or accounting for those barriers, they said, we'll just keep moving forward, and whoever can get over those hurdles will prioritize their application. And
that's crazy.
It's been a slow circle effect. Yeah.
It's like, hey, we really want to give back. Okay. But like, unless you can do it quicker than these other guys, we're going to saturate the market with a bunch of people that are going to just explode all over the place. And then when you come for your piece that you deserve and that you earned, it could be years before you get there, and they're not going to support you because they're like, oh, if they already know how to grow weed and they're well funded, then it's less likely, they're less of a liability. Whereas, if there's someone that needs to go and source more money, and maybe they haven't been in the industry as long, they're not going to support them. And so they just kind of wait for somebody to jump over hurdles that are almost impossible. It's like talk is really cheap, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's costly as well, because so as I shared, that was in 2020, and then since then the state rolled out technical assistance program, and they've also put into conversation with the legislation and need for a fund. These are barriers that we had identified, and the solution, the PIES program that we may talk about here, but if not, it's out there. We put it out into the universe, the PIES program as a solution. And folks, in 2020, we said, hey, look, if we don't implement something like the PIES, which would actually put the onus on the cannabis industry to support this, work alongside with the state and support each other in ensuring that we have this equitable participation, we're going to see a fully saturated, a fully mature industry that does not have representation from those that they said that they wanted to see participating, especially at the leadership level, let alone at the managerial level or even at the employment level. And so fast forward, we're wrapping up the 2022 year, and we're looking at the same data. We're looking at the same data.
I feel like this is happening in more markets and more markets. And it's, you know, back in the day, female cannabis executives ruled the cannabis world. It was like the first industry where women were in positions of power, were running and operating and owning businesses in the cannabis space. And then gradually you can see over time how that number declines and declines. And then all of a sudden the older white men, very well-funded, starts to come in. And we see a lot of people starting to participate from markets that are like, you know, bubblegum and finance. And it's like all of a sudden they want to start playing in this industry that they, you know, will dabble in cannabis and make a couple $1 million. And now I don't think I have a single client nationwide besides one that isn't a white male. Now that I think about it, I have a white female somewhere in there. But that's just nuts.
Well, so then on that sort of thought, Cynthia and Maur, why don't you tell us, you know, how you really started your company, and then tell us a little bit specifically about it and about your product.
So I partnered with a bigger operator who's already established in Massachusetts. I believe they wholesale to 85% of the industry. And I was able to convince them. So what I did, my process was to hit up everybody. I emailed, I called anybody, I called everybody. I created programs, I created structures, I created contracts in ways that we can work together. And I did the same with this operator. I was able to get them to get into contract with me to produce a product. I created the contract, so it was real open. I could do whatever I wanted to do. One of the biggest things I did was I got in advance so I could hire a team. So I hired a team. I wanted to produce products, so I wanted to hire some people who were producing products. And I hired my friend of mine. He had been producing products in the supplement industry for over 20 years. So I hired him, and I hired a couple other friends of mine collectively on my team. About 60 years, almost 60 years of producing and releasing products. And these guys have fully vertically integrated labs throughout America and also one in Mexico. So I got some people who knew what they were doing on my team to help me take advantage of the opportunity. So I was able to create a product and we actually have over a dozen SOPs related to cannabis products that you won't see in the market in Massachusetts or in the market as of yet. That's what we want to specialize in, those type of blue ocean ideas. So the Shakti, the energy shot, there was none on the East Coast. There was one on the West Coast at the time, but we created an energy shot, my guy's formula. We put that together with this company, yeah.
And I'll add, with the energy shot, I think is really reflective of you as well. You know, he smokes sativas all of the time, you know, and I'm still using the term sativa because that's what we used previously before all the latest research and new development and understanding around terpenes and all that. But so sativa, smokes sativa all the time. He loves to be up. He loves to, when I say up, I mean literally physically awake. I'm like, I'm going to take a nap. I need to go rest.
You're like, I'm going to be into couch and you can be sativa.
Yeah, seriously. So, you know, I think the energy shot, it just makes a lot of sense with this personality that would be when he comes out with on the legal side first.
Yeah,
So,
I think a lot of people are motivated like me. Some people aren't. Like a lot of people say, "Hey, isn't that oxymoron? You hold up weed
That's
and
what I
energy?"
thought. I was like, because all cannabis to me is an indica. Like, I don't care if it says sativa, hybrid, whatever. I'm going to be asleep and I'm going to be pretty much catatonic if it's a certain method of delivery.
And
Now,
you have your smoker class who has a cup of coffee, with their cannabis, and that's kind of like
like
or
a wake
tea.
and bake.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I get it. Justin gets it. But yeah, I mean, it's not just an energy shot though. It's got B12, it's got B6, B3, amino acids, THC, obviously, caffeine, and then you've got 2 flavors so far that are strawberry lemonade, which I can't wait to try when I venture to Boston, and lemongrass. Lemongrass, I thought was
Lemon
very
green tea.
interesting choice.
Yeah,
lemon green tea. Lemon green tea.
Oh, I saw lemon. Okay, maybe I was wrong. I guess you would know.
Yeah, the vitamin B's are special. They act as a fat burner, but they also act as a mental boost. Most Americans are deficient in our vitamin B's, vitamin B3, 6, and 12. We have in it, and we have some plant-based amino acids, which actually add like a prolonged effect with the caffeine. It makes it come out, and it also takes away the jitters and the crash too. So it's a 4 to 7 hour energy shot.
Oh man, Justin, you're a doctor. What do you think about their little formula and how they included everything? He's a doctor, but he loves cannabis too. So I feel like this is a good way in. What do you think?
I enjoy cooking, creating things, and making potions. Or
You're an alchemist for sure.
Last night I was trying my hand at making a Trini pepper sauce from all the peppers I had to harvest before the freeze. So I think it sounds great. I love the little, sort of the mixture. I'm a believer in the holistic approach, meaning that everyone always thinks holistic means, that it's to the exclusion that it's something
herbs.
Right, but it's not. It's holistic. Holism means the whole, everything. So, the more elements you have, the more whole picture or product that you're going to have. And so I think it's a great idea, and I'm sure people are enjoying it.
I've seen a lot of really positive stuff online about it. And I know that right out the gate, you guys introduced the product to the market, and then you sold like 4,000 bottles to how many dispensaries?
We did 6,000 bottles in 5 weeks.
Yeah, 6,500
and with no promotion, so, and it wasn't, we were in how many?
At that time, I think we were about 35 or I don't remember the number, 35 or 50 stores. I don't remember what the number was.
Yeah, we weren't in quite 50 stores yet when we reached that number, but yeah.
And that's amazing, especially for a new product launch. You don't see, well, one, you do have some restrictions on some markets about what you can and cannot make, what you can and cannot put THC in. And Florida has a lot of them because we're still medical. So I'm really pushing the beef jerky infused, cannabis infused beef jerky everywhere I go, because I feel like I'm gonna retire on beef jerky pot. So but I like the fact that you were able to create a product in the market that you're in, and people just loved it. And it's better than the West Coast one, according to everything online. I haven't tried it yet, but I expect to.
Yeah, it was the entourage effect of the amino acids, the vitamin B's. Yeah, they weren't putting those in there. And it almost acts like an antidepressant for me. Like, it gets me talkative, gets me cool.
Yeah, that was really surprising. So to his point, right? It's subtle onset. I just realized at one point I just started talking a lot. I was talking. I thought I was tired. I'm like, oh, I did take the shot. Wow. And so it is definitely you feel it. You feel it.
I've never drank cannabis before. Have you, Justin?
I've tried an infused drink in California once, but I wussed out. I didn't take very much of it. So I guess
entry level.
Actually, when I was in India, way up in the mountains. I was given what was called a bung lassi, bung meaning with cannabis, and I didn't know how much it was. It was a mango lassi, so I drank it, and let's just say that was one of the most intense experiences of my life. A couple hours.
I feel like this story either needs to be told to a licensed professional because it was going to go that place, or it was actually ayahuasca or peyote that you drank.
No, it was
Oops.
bung lassi, and I was in another planet for sure.
That sounds like it was working. That seemed
it was too much. It was too much. So, which brings me to my how much THC do you put in your drink?
5 milligrams. It's in Massachusetts is limited to 5 milligrams.
On the recreational side, yeah.
Which is a struggle for people who are just doing like maybe like a single serving, because people tend to want more. But it's really at the medical dose where it's just waking up the endocannabinoid system. Like, hey, I got some THC in here. You're not getting high. It's
5 is actually good for me. Is that weird? Like
same here.
Yeah, I'm good with 5. I actually had a mint. Justin, remember when I bought those mints? I had those were 2.5 milligrams. They're like 40. I was like, I can just pop a couple. I took one, forgot I took it, then went to Taco Bell, and I was like, I shouldn't be driving in the car, but I can't leave the Taco Bell line. I'm like already devoted, but like, I don't know about me with edibles. I make a bunch of them, but 5 is actually right there where I want it to be. I don't know if I could drink 20.
Yeah.
No, same here. That's why I said I feel it. Maybe perhaps for someone who, cannabis, the phytocannabinoid is like part of your every moment.
But I'm glad because I don't want it to affect people like that. I want people getting high off it. I want it to be an experience that adds something to what you got going on.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I remember the first time ever getting high, I got so high, it was like I was paranoid and I did not have a good time and I anxious, and no, I swore it off. But I think people that are like entry level, that are like, okay, I'm going to dabble in some cannabis as a wellness plan. This would be something where it's like the caffeine, the energy part of it, and then the actual, like you said, you just became more talkative. I think that would be a nice way of easing someone into a product without having to just ignite combustible doobies, because you have no control.
It definitely appeals to the kind of curious, and then also in the context of if you want to consume it right before you go to work or have to engage with folks. So it's like, okay, I have, like you said, your endocannabinoids have been awakened and you're stimulated, but you're still focused at the same time. So it's really an interesting experience, and you're not, loopy high. I had a similar experience the first time I had an edible. He brought it back from California. I don't even smoke. And he's like, here, babe, you have to try this. This is delicious. Shoves the chocolate in my mouth. Oh my gosh. I am in the bathroom, like crying, like, baby, stay away from me. I don't know what's going on. It was just really, So
make it stop.
It's simple,
Yeah, she's going home and folding the dishes and then putting Totino's pizza rolls in the dishwasher.
No, I couldn't do that. No, I literally, I was like crawling because everything was spinning. The world was spinning. Like the earth was on its axis. These are the things I'm saying to him. And it was just from crawling from the bathroom to the couch. That
sounds so fun.
No, and nothing's to say that
it wasn't fun for me. I don't give her edibles anymore.
You learned your lesson.
I learned my lesson.
Go ahead, Justin. What were you saying?
And nothing's to say that someone even has to do the full 5 milligrams of your energy drink. They could do a microdose essentially, or sip it throughout the day over a few hours.
Right. There's not a lot of stuff out there that lets you kind of control the dose, especially if you are entry level and you start to ignite combustible cannabis. Like you have no control about how much is going into your body, how much THC is in your system, or when you're too high, what to do when you're too high, to like come back down from crawling to the couch, there. So I think as we learn, having stuff like that where they can take like half a bottle and then see how it feels. What's the onset timeline like?
I would say 5 minutes, 4 minutes is. So we have a nano emulsion in there that just it's almost instantly. So yeah.
Bioavailability.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
You
yeah. It's really so good.
metabolize fast.
Yeah.
Yes. Justin, do you have any comments on bioavailability nanoemulsions and metabolizing cannabis through the system, doctor?
It's something that who would have never thought of it, back in 70s and 80s or 60s, 70s, 80s. And now it's like this ingenious method of delivery where it allows people to use something orally, but with a fast onset time. It really gives you a lot more control, right? Because you can titrate it as opposed to waiting an hour and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I don't like
So
that.
it's ingenious.
Yeah.
Ingenious from the doctor himself. Put that on the label. Dr. Davis says it's ingenious. I love this. So what I want to do, we are out of time, but what I want to do is I really want to make sure that we touch on either we do a special episode for it, but I feel like you were talking specifically about the program that you think would be good for the mass CC that you wanted to implement that we didn't really get to touch on, but I know it's super important to helping all programs if we can get that social equity piece in place. What was the name of it again?
It's the PIES program. And, it actually kind of looped back to what Justin said earlier when we were talking about education and the children. And it said, when we say we know what the problem is, well, why don't we just address the problem? That's what the PIES program does. It looked at, we know what the problem is. We know the key barriers to entry for those who have, for Black and brown businesses, small businesses, when we want to see equitable participation. And we also know that the folks who are well capitalized will do what is necessary so that they can open up their businesses. So keeping that model in mind and understanding that we want to create an industry where everyone is working together is how we came up with the PIES program, which stands for Pairing, Incubating, Accelerating, and Seed. And it's not just a 1 year or a 6-month program. It's a program that's designed to foster a relationship over several years, ideally 4 years, with the intention of seeing equity businesses not only open up and get licensed, but become operational and go through some of the initial hurdles and the waves, if you will, of starting a business, especially a heavily regulated one.
And to mention, there's also several groups in New York supporting the program and pushing the program.
Yeah, so we recognize that there are certain New York legislation and even the policies as they're rolling them out lends itself for the PIES program to be effective there in supporting having an industry that is that allows for black and brown small business, the businesses that we don't see entering in a space where there isn't a social equity program.
We don't see it here. And I know that New York has a lot of work to do, and they could use something like that to really kind of dodge a bunch of bullets that could happen, because if they don't fix it soon, it could be bad. It could be really bad, especially when you're looking at actual drafted language about prioritization of larger clients versus small. And that right there to me is something where it's like, oh, I can see the shit show forming and I'm going to get the popcorn, and you have the actual cure. And it's about showing like how relevant and how important, how necessary this mindset is. It's not just a small program. It's changing the mind of the entire industry, that like
how we do business. Yeah.
This should be the gospel. It shouldn't be, oh, we have to do the social equity thing. It's like, this should be the way we should be including everybody. Cannabis cures and fixes everything. So like everyone should be able to play with it, not just the privileged or the, right, Justin, on your boat. All right. Well, it was such a pleasure having the two of you on. This was awesome. I love both of you a lot. I think it's so cool, the dynamic that you have together, and you can definitely tell that you've been through a lot, and you guys are right there for one another. And it shows that both, professionally and personally, that you guys are a great pair. Absolutely.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise, this has been awesome spending time with you.
Yeah, we have so much more to talk about. We definitely have to do it again and focus on
love that.
I can't wait.
I won't be on a boat next time.
Yeah, you need to be in an office like a professional, Justin, not on a boat on a freaking Thursday. Like I'm in my home office. You're on a boat on a Thursday.
Man,
Anyway.
that is such a cool flex, Justin. Man, I wish I was out there.
I mean,
man, bald eagles. What can I do?
You don't have to flex so hard. You could leave some bitches for the rest of them. I'm just saying, he's on a boat. Okay. Justin will be in regular, office attire and such, and with less kids, I would assume. But you guys are more than welcome to come on whenever you want. Just let me know. We love what you guys are doing, and you've got a lot of important stuff. And I don't think we even touched on half of it. So, this is great for the industry. And I will sign off. This is Cynthia Brewer signing off for the Marijuana Mind. We will talk to you next week. And my co-host,
Jay Davis. Keep it green as always.
I thought you were gonna say Jay Nasty.
I was
we just really want nicknames one day. I swear. All right.
Thank you again. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.